Once upon a time, we lived a life where we sacrificed everything for other people, especially if you're a woman. And I'm biased, obviously, because I'm a woman. But our lives were filled with always helping someone else, always figuring out things for someone else, problem solving, whether it's our spouses, our children, our family members, yada, 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 right? We did that, and oftentimes we put ourselves last. It's quite an frequent occurrence that an individual will do for others and think of themselves last. In doing so, we have to question, how are we treating ourselves? How are our emotions? Where's our mental health? Listen, this is your host, Ann Marie of About This Life. I'm here today to talk to you about what it is to give a life of service. I want to say that about this life, we have these conversations with real people who are going through it, who are going through the business, and they've met the challenge and they found some sort of solution, some sort of golden nugget out of that circumstance. And they made it to the other side. So, about this life is about finding some pathways to get to the other sides, to get through your circumstances. And maybe it's a perspective you haven't thought about before. So, I am happy to welcome Julie Ulstrup. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Ann Marie. I'm so delighted to be here.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Now, Julie, you are the founder of Educator to Entrepreneur, having spent umpteen years. We're not going to call any numbers, okay, Julie? We
Okay.
will date ourselves. A lot of years, a lot of time. We spent a lot of time in the education field. And if that is not a service industry, I don't know what is. I liken it actually to a ministry, and we'll get into the heart of it in a moment. So, welcome to the show. And I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. But first, there's a starfish behind your shoulder. And I'm enamored with this starfish, and I just keep looking at it. So it's almost like I want to make a wish. Why a starfish?
Well, make a wish. Be my guest, please. I'm the guest on your podcast. Please make a wish on my star. So it's actually a star that represents our zone of brilliance, our zone of genius, the
Oh,
place where all of the knowledge, all of the wisdom, all of who we are comes together and creates that beautiful light of our being. And so it's got 7 points on it, the star behind me.
mm.
And in fact, in my signature success program, it is a 7-step system. So that's what the light is, because we all
So did
have
you
this
find
light.
this starfish like
I
that, or
had the
did you had it
star
made?
I've had the star for many years prior to creating this signature program. And yes, so it's just meant to be together. I love it.
Alignment, divine
Alignment.
appointment.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are the words that come to me. Huh? So, what did you do in education? Talk to us about that.
Okay, I did a lot of things in education. I started my career as an educator kind of before I started my career as an educator. I worked in higher education and I took programs that were either small or I worked in higher ed and I took these programs that were either small or just kind of starting out and I grew them really, really large to really change a lot of people's lives, to increase enrollment in admission at a small university in Indiana. I also worked at the University of Chicago and grew a program that worked with everyone from undergraduates to PhDs and law students and medical students and all of those kind of things. So that's where I started. And then I got this wild idea. It wasn't really a wild idea. It seemed very logical at the time. I got a master's degree. And at the time, I was working at Butler University, and the vice president of enrollment management really went to bat for me because if I was working full time, I would have had tuition remission and not had to pay for a master's degree. Now, listeners and you, Anne Marie, know that education is very expensive.
It
And my
sure
vice,
is.
yeah, yeah. And my vice president went to bat for me. I was not working full time, I was working part time, but he was so committed to me and the work that I was doing for the university that I got tuition remission. I did not have to pay for a master's degree at a private university. And I got my master's degree in school counseling. And that launched a very long career as a school counselor.
That is a blessing to have your education paid for. But before you take me on the wild ride, you said that you grew programs.
Yes.
Now, I have to tell you, my celebrity crush is Denzel Washington. Why is he on my mind? Because the Gladiator is coming out, okay? So I can't wait to see him. But he was in another movie, and I remember the line, and he was playing a lawyer, and he says, "Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year old, or however old the child would be. So explain it to me like a 5-year old. What do you mean grow a program and expand a program? You mentioned admissions and you mentioned going to different departments. Grow it
Okay.
how? More people coming into the school, into the university, or more professional development? You have to break it down to me.
Okay, well, in this instance, it was both. So I came into a program, and at the time, this was a few years ago, just a minute or two, and it was a program where current students at the university were calling prospective students to have a conversation and to find out what they were interested in. And this was just a brand new idea at the time. And so I would go in the evenings and I would work with this team of students. Well, when I walked in the very first day, I'm not kidding you, Anne Marie, there were piles and piles and piles of papers of students calling these prospective students because that's how the lists were generated. And there was no rhyme or reason. There were dates and notes on the paper, but there was no coordination of any of it. And I had two different shifts of students, and it was kind of mayhem. So these were university level students. So what I was able to do in this process was to work with an IT person, because I'm not an IT person, but to create a system so that when we had an admitted student visit day, those students would get reminder calls. So they started to build relationships with students, because
Okay.
here's the thing, when you're talking to a professor, that has one level of depth to it, but talking to another student, to a peer, you're going to get the real scoop. And what's it really like to go to school there?
Yes, you're going to get the things that they don't put on the website.
Exactly. And
You
so
are going,
so I managed all these students, which was so much fun. I was like their big sister, and I got to, talk with them through different problems and different things they were experiencing with university life, and then have that extension of them talking to the prospective students. And we grew our admission year over year over year. And in large part because were, these students were building these relationships with these prospective students. The other thing that was a great bonus was I'm still in touch with some of these students. I
this
just
is
got
awesome.
chills. Yeah, one of them has a daughter right now who's a high schooler herself. So it's really just, it was a beautiful way to grow and expand a program that was mayhem. And, people were getting cranky about, these students are in my office touching my pens. Well, like, okay, right? So I taught the students how to be good employees as well as good communicate. I mean, just so many different parts of it. It was really an incredible experience. You can tell I still get excited talking about
You
it all these
do.
years later.
You smile. And I think about the field of education.
Yeah,
In the field of education, we give and we give and we give.
yeah,
And I think about uh, all of the people like spend a day in our shoes.
yeah,
If you only knew what
yeah,
happens once the school bell rings and you walk through the doors, there is so much, whether you are in a kindergarten classroom or you're in higher ed. What I have found about people in the field is we often give of ourselves so much that we're last.
yeah,
We are last. We are last when it comes to our responsibilities. We are last when it comes to being at home because we want to take care of the people that we love. And we're lucky if during the day you get to go to the bathroom. That's a bonus. And
yep,
if you go
yep.
twice during the day, that's a bonus. And another bonus is after you've tucked in your children or you spend time with that spouse or that significant other, you breathe, but by the time you breathe, you're like this on the couch.
You're sleeping. Right, you're
You're
snoring.
like this on the couch. You don't even know when you fell asleep. All you know is, some days you didn't even get to go upstairs to the bedroom because you are just laid out. What was that What was that like for you in terms of feeling like your last? What was that like for you? And how did you know that you needed to make a change?
So, it was gradual, but that it felt like things were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was so lucky in my career to work with great people, to have great students and parents. I mean, I really worked with some remarkable, remarkable people. The school that I was at in my final years as an educator, it was a very high risk school.
Mm.
We had a lot of suicides, not just attempts, completed suicides. And as a counselor, oftentimes I was the one who took the lead on going into the classrooms, having the conversations, and telling students what had happened, and counseling them through their grief. Wow, like talk about just changing the energy in our conversation, right? So I had a lot of experiences like that. And then the things started to
I have a
shift.
question, Julie.
Yeah.
I have a question. That's very heavy
Yes.
to walk into a classroom. You're supposed to be the adult in the room,
Yeah.
okay? Because you need to console these minors. And
Yeah.
even if they're over 18, in terms of, you're working in higher ed, that's a very heavy topic.
Yeah.
So, how is it you're able to console them and not carry that weight yourself?
It's not possible. I mean, there's some of it that knowing that I needed to help, I needed to support their grief. And this was at the high school level. There was also a fairly high rate of poverty at this school. So these children, they're teenagers, but they're children, they had so much other trauma, so much other loss, so much other grief that it was very, very heavy. And it took a toll, it was difficult work, and it was also work that was satisfying, but being in that year after year after year, it was probably 4 or 5 years, that we had at least one suicide a year and sometimes other deaths. And it wasn't like it was a huge school. So it got to be very wearing. And then on top of it, um, the administration changed. And like I mentioned, I grow programs. So I was part of my role was not just grief counseling, although that could be a full-time job.
Mhm.
I grew a program for the state of Colorado, which is where I live, and they have a concurrent enrollment program. And this is when concurrent enrollment was just starting. So students at the high school level could take university level classes while they were in high school, and there was no charge. And there was a lot of paperwork involved. Well, in 4 years, I grew that program to the largest program in the state of Colorado. And the reason I share this with you is one of my assistant principals came in to have a conversation with me. And he said, Julie, there's some concern with the person who you're working with at the community college about the work that you're doing. And I was like, oh, really?
Mhm.
I have a great relation, still to this day, I have a great
Mhm.
relationship with this woman. So after the assistant principal walked out of my office, I called
Mhm.
and I said, let's just make up a name.
Okay.
Angela. I was like, Angela, what's going on? I just heard that you have concerns. And she was like, Julie, the concerns that I have are that you don't have enough support. You're doing amazing work.
Amazing job. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the
Yeah.
first indicator of like, so I asked her to put that in writing. I said, please put that in, and so you can start to feel, right? I'm like, I'm having it put in writing. I'm questioning what's happening. And then one of the other things that happened was very deeply personal to me. At the time, my son was in the United States Army. He
Mm.
was served as an Army Ranger, and he was leaving for his second combat tour in Afghanistan. And he was going to come home for a visit. And so I
Thank you for
asked
your
my,
service. Yes.
thank you, thank you. And so I went to, so for those who don't know, who are not educators, you have to ask for time off. You have to request time off, even if you have scheduled time off. I mean, even if you have the days, you have to request it from your principal. And I know there are other jobs like that too, but I had, 20 years experience and a master's degree, right? It was not my first rodeo. So I went and I talked to my principal, and the motto of our school was Ubuntu. I am who I am because of who we are. We're a
Hmm.
family. We take care of each other. And she was like, well, let me think about it.
Mm.
I was like, what? My
What?
son's going to
What?
war. This is not like we're not taking a Hawaiian vacation. And
Haitian.
yeah, and the United States Army doesn't let you choose when you get to come home for leave. So, she did come back and say that I could take this time, but next time, you can't ask for time off during a very busy time. And I was like, when is
Wow.
busy? Anne Marie, your face
Wow.
just dropped, right? It's always a busy time. And if we're a
Wow.
family, we're a dysfunctional family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
at that point, I had already started my business as an entrepreneur. And I took the summer off and I took the next semester off and I started my business as an entrepreneur and never looked back. I love what I'm doing. I love supporting others. I love making a difference. And I'm doing it in a different way.
Yes, absolutely. Before we get into it, how's your son? I
My
mean, he
son's
went to the second tour.
amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, he's doing great. He came back and he got his MBA
Hmm.
and he is living the life of his dreams in Southern California. So thank you for asking. Yeah.
What a blessing. What a blessing. I wanted that story to turn out well because, you
Yes.
know, considering everything and as well as in that part of the world. So there's a transition
Yeah.
that you made. And I want to stay in a place because everybody has their point.
Yes.
Everybody has this, I forget the term. It's not shifting point,
The
but you
tipping
have
point.
the tipping point. Yes, you have your tipping point because when you are in the field of education, you push and you push, you persevere. You
Yes.
move through it. From your description, you're moving through not just, like the social emotional development of other people.
Yeah.
And when you are coaching, you are investing, you are showing our young adults how to navigate life, and you're constantly pouring into them, you reach a tipping point and you say, I need to pour into myself. And, today we're talking about education, but it could be anything. It could be any career that you're in. So I want listeners to know that whatever field that you're working in, you reach a tipping point and you want something different. So we have the summer, and I go, ha ha,
Right.
because
Yeah.
because even the summer's off. First of all, understanding what we did for 10 months and then summer's off, there's always a workshop or a PD to go to. And then you took a semester off and you gave birth to this brand new career. So take us on that wild ride about this career. What do you do now?
Well, it was a wild ride, and that career has also changed, which,
Mhm.
more transformation, more transformation. So when the star in the background, one of the things that I've always loved is photography. And when I left it, I had started a photography business while I was in education and photographing families and photographing high school seniors. And it was really, really good. However, I didn't know how I was making an impact. Like, how was I, as a
Mhm.
school counselor, as any kind of educator, there's this sense of really making a difference in people's lives. But I didn't quite put those together with photography. And then I started a project with women who are 50 plus and fabulous. And
Yes, yes, Stalin. Yes.
I'll have a slice of that, please.
Shut up, pose.
Yeah. And being able to literally show women through the back of my lens and then in, creating portraits, their strength, their power, their beauty, who they are, the star of who they are in a photograph created amazing transformation in them
Yes.
as human beings. And so that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. And I believe because I had such a very strong focus and strong skills and knowing what my skills are and were, I was able to earn double my school counselor salary with 20 years experience, with a master's degree. I was able to double that in 3 years. I
With
mean,
the photography, just the
yes,
photography?
yes,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I, I have to say this too, because this year I actually I did a boudoir photo shoot.
Good for you. Good for you.
So in terms of what you do, I can co-sign on what you're saying, that when you see the pictures, you are amazed.
Yeah.
So for our women who are listening, treat yourself to a
Yes.
boudoir photo shoot. And for the men who are listening, you know, Valentine's Day is coming up, and you're always wondering what new and innovative thing can you give that special person. Well, instead of chocolate and flowers, how about you grant her a photo shoot? And it doesn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
to be boudoir if you don't want to. It could be a regular one, but what a gift to the woman in your life. Could even be to your mom. I mean, imagine that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what a beautiful gift that would be to a woman in your life. And so in 2 years, you're able to up level your salary and do this. Can you
Yeah.
share another pillar with us? We don't want to give away all seven because we want people to come in contact with you, but share another pillar of that star.
Absolutely. The first one is clarity, and it's
Mhm,
really getting very clear about our mission, our vision, our values. What
mhm.
is it? Because, like you said, we give and give and give, and what do we want? Like, what do we want? We want to make a difference. We want to have an impact.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. And what do we want our lives to look like? What do we want our lives to feel like? You know? So that's one of the pillars as well, really
Okay.
um,
And
getting
one more. So we make it three because three is a beautiful number. So
it
three of the
is.
seven.
Okay. What is another one? Well, it's voice. It's finding our voice. What are the words? How do we tell people about who we are? So here's the
Mhm.
thing, right? Educators are very good at teaching about things, other things.
Hmm.
You're an English teacher, right? You can teach about
Yes.
all of these things. What about giving voice to your big dream? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? How do you, and this is another one, how are you going to attract with your voice? How are you going to attract your ideal clients, the people who need you? Because people need what you have to offer. This world needs it in our education system and outside of the education system. Who are you? Okay, I could just keep going. I'm gonna.
You can keep going, but I don't want you to give away any more of the pillars. But one of the commonalities you and I have is finding your voice. It is the reason I'm doing this podcast, as a matter of fact, about this life. And I happen to be in that space as well, because finding your voice, at first it begins being an English teacher, it begins with teaching students how to, you know, your personality that shows up in your writing is uniquely yours. No one is going to write like you.
Yeah.
And then it evolves into this is your whole being, your whole essence. And
Yeah.
sometimes people don't know or don't see who they are because it's like you're too close to yourself. And it takes somebody
100%.
else looking at you. It
Yes.
takes someone else looking at you to be able to say, you would really be good at that. And so, Julie, what you've done is like you're transferring one set of skills over the same set of skills from one audience from one population over to another population in terms of helping people find their voice,
Yes.
right? In
Yes.
terms of helping people find their clarity and
Yes.
helping them see the star that's in themselves.
100%.
100%. And that makes you light up. I can see it.
I know. You're right. You're right.
That makes you light up. That makes you light up. And so come back to the point because you were feeling overwhelmed and you were feeling, oh my goodness, you know, everybody's else's needs instead of my own. You're still giving to other people though. So how does that impact you in terms of giving to yourself? You're helping other people find your voice, find clarity. But how is that feeding your soul by doing
Great
this work?
question. Great question.
What's
You know
your
what?
why?
Yeah, it's much more of an even exchange is what is occurring, what's happening right now. I work with clients who I don't have 350 students with, parents and siblings and all of those things. I have people who are choosing to work with me, people who want something more in their life, who want more impact, who want more influence, and are willing to do the work to get there. So that fills me because I have a very it's not all over the place with, and again, the students and the families that I worked with, I loved. And it's not this scattered energy of being everything to all people. It is helping people in a very specific way to find that star inside themselves and to really tap into that to make the world a better place. And so that is so rewarding, just like the school counseling was, but it doesn't, the school counseling got to a point where there were all these other factors involved, and it
Okay.
just was not fulfilling anymore.
So, how did you make the leap? You gave us some background in terms of the circumstances, and you shared the story about your son and leaving everything. But to jump from, I get paid every 2 weeks. I
Yep.
have days. I have my sick leave bank to I'm into this new territory now. Making that leap, did you have a village that surrounded you and were there to encourage you? Um, how did you make this jump for anybody who's thinking about, I'm at my tipping point and I want to do something different? How do you help them to jump? How did
Yeah.
you jump?
Well, they can call me. Like
Yes,
that.
they call you.
Yeah.
Definitely, they can call
Yeah.
you.
And I have some really supportive friends and family. And there were other people who were like, Julie, you're crazy. You only, there's like the big
Yeah.
golden number that you get to this number of years. I didn't have that number of years in this school district. And I left like 3 years before. They're like, wait
Hmm.
another 3 years. I'm like, I'm not waiting.
Why?
Exactly. So I had both. I had people who were like, yes, you can do this. And then there were people who were like, why are you doing this? And I was
Hmm.
like, I have to do this. So part of it for me was there was this part of me that knew that I needed to
Hmm.
go. And I hired a great coach to help me through all of the fear and the scariness and the doubt.
Mindset shifts.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. And I have another corny colloquialism for you, and that's you followed your star. Going back to the star again, going back to the framework,
yeah,
because no one can walk your journey but you.
yeah, yeah,
No one can walk your journey but you. And there's some internal sense of being that you understand when change is upon you. And you break through the fear, the trepidation, you shut out the noise, and you leap
yeah.
and you jump. And that is a very brave thing to do. So one of the things that I would like to ask you, Julie, as we sort of close up our conversation, how would you answer this question? I wish someone would have told me.
I wish someone would have told me, and I wish that that person that would have told me was myself. I wish that someone would have told me that let me back up a little. I've done incredible things in my life. I've had amazing experiences. I've had so many beautiful opportunities. I wish someone would have told me that this will be a transformation that will change everything about your life for good, for good. And you'll be able to make the world a better place because you're changing for good.
You are changing for good. Thank you so much. So, Julie, how do people get in touch with you?
I think you're going to put the link in the show
Yes, I
notes.
will. Yes, I will.
Yep. It's julieulstrup.com/chat. And I also have a clarity compass that I think I shared the link with you. If not, I will make sure I get that to you that really can help people start getting some clarity in different areas and then, schedule a call with me and I'm also on YouTube and LinkedIn. So those are places that if people want to just, start following, find out a little bit more about me, that would be great too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to, first of all, thank you for being my guest on About This Life podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
I would
Thank you
like
so
to
much.
say that our conversation really focuses, whether you're in education or any other field, is when you may have come to a tipping point. Even before you do, actually, it's a good time to start. But when you want something different, you're afraid, you're scared, you're saying, maybe that's for other people. Let me stay safe and secure. Let me, it's okay. What you end up doing is you end up settling. You
Mm,
end up settling for something less than. What if? What if you just left? LEP. I know my accent. My accent gets in the way sometimes, but let me say it differently. What if you just took a leap?
yeah,
What if you just took a leap and somebody was there to catch you?
yeah,
That is what this conversation is about. It's about taking a step forward. And there's the Chinese proverb that says, the 1,000-step journey begins with a first step. I'm paraphrasing.
yeah.
If you take a step, the teacher is going to appear
100.
somehow, some way. But you first have to make a decision. This is Ann Marie, host of About This Life. My guest today has been Julie Ulstrup, changing our lives one day at a time. Amen.